Bakhtiar Sanov and you're watching A News Now. Let's take a look at today's top stories. U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff heads to Russia to meet Putin to discuss peace plan as Russia claims control over Pokrovsk. The White House Defense War Secretary Pete Hegseth over strike that killed survivors of an alleged drug boat. And floods across Southeast Asia have killed more than 1,000 people and left hundreds missing. After high-level talks in Florida with the Ukrainian delegation, U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff will meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin today to discuss a plan to end the war in Ukraine. It comes after Russia says its troops have seized the frontline Ukraine towns of Pokrovsk and Luhansk, and that they are pushing ahead across multiple directions. It's a set of claims that Ukrainian officials have not confirmed. Here's more.
Russia's defense forces claim to have captured the Ukrainian city of Pokrovsk. The defense ministry released footage on Monday appearing to show Russian soldiers in the center of the frontline eastern Ukrainian town. This follows months of heavy fighting over the strategic hub. Long seen as a key city for Kyiv because of its road and rail links, Pokrovsk sits at a junction of major routes leading to Donetsk in the east and Dnipro and Zaporizhia in the west. It has also played a crucial role in battlefield operations, serving as a supply line that supported Ukrainian logistics before they branched out to smaller villages and frontline positions around the city. Russian military commanders also claim to have captured the town of Vovchansk after a meeting with President Vladimir Putin on Sunday.
This is an important direction. We all understand just how important. It will ensure solutions going forward to the tasks we initially set at the beginning of the special military operation.
Ukraine, however, has not acknowledged that either location has fallen into Russian hands, though it has reported around 43 Russian attacks in the sector around Pokrovsk. Meanwhile, a Russian ballistic missile strike on Dnipro on Monday killed at least 4 people and injured dozens. These developments come after high-level talks in Florida on Sunday between US and Ukrainian officials on how to end the war. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, is expected to meet Putin in Moscow on Tuesday to discuss the Trump administration's latest proposal to end the conflict. On Monday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was in Paris meeting with President Emmanuel Macron. The French president said the European Union will find a way to use frozen Russian assets to support Kyiv.
A renewed push for diplomacy in the Ukraine war is drawing scrutiny as reports of a US-backed settlement outline terms that could legitimize Russia's territorial gains. Analysts warn the proposal would not only reshape Ukraine's future, but also challenge the long-standing principles governing borders, sovereignty and security across the post-Soviet region.
Talk of a diplomatic solution for Russia's war in Ukraine is gaining momentum, but the plan under discussion could reshape borders and shake the global order. Reports indicate that the Trump administration is developing a 28-point deal centered on Moscow's maximalist demands, covering peace in Ukraine, security guarantees, European security, and future US-Russia-Ukraine relations. If implemented, the deal would effectively legitimize Russian control over Crimea, Donetsk, and Luhansk, undermining key pillars of international law. The Helsinki Final Act, adopted in 1975, guarantees the inviolability of borders and forbids changing them by force without mutual consent. Endorsing annexation would strip this 1975 act of its authority. The Alma-Ata Declaration, signed in 1991, confirmed post-Soviet borders and territorial integrity. Legitimizing annexation would dismantle this 1991 agreement and threaten states across the post-Soviet space, including Moldova, Georgia, Kazakhstan, and Azerbaijan. The UN Charter, adopted in 1945, Article 2, Section 4, prohibits the threat or use of force against any state's sovereignty. A pressured peace deal recognizing border changes would set a precedent where military power overrides international law. The big question remains, is this a genuine path to peace or a risky move that could rewrite global rules and prioritize force over law? Point 7 of the proposed peace plan bans Ukraine from joining NATO, setting a dangerous precedent. It effectively allows major powers to dictate the defense policies and alliance choices of smaller states. This reverses the Helsinki Final Act and the UN Charter, which guarantees states the freedom to choose their alliances. If accepted, Russia could later justify restrictions on neighbours, threatening agreements such as the Shusha Declaration between Azerbaijan and Turkey, or cooperation within the Organization of Turkic States. More broadly, the plan risks returning the international system to a 19th century concert of powers model, where only major states decide security outcomes. The systemic risk is stark. Recognizing territorial changes in Ukraine would create a universal precedent. Borders across the post-Soviet space, including in Azerbaijan, could be challenged. With stable borders underpinning strategic security, altering Ukraine's sovereignty without consent signals that the fate of smaller states can once again be decided over their heads.
Meanwhile, President Zelensky has arrived in Dublin for talks with Prime Minister Micheál Martin. It's expected he will address the Irish Parliament. Accompanied by his wife Olena Zelenska, Zelensky is also expected to attend the inauguration of the Ireland-Ukraine Economic Forum, alongside Ireland's Deputy Prime Minister Simon Harris. Zelensky will also meet the country's newly elected President Catherine Connolly in his first official visit to Ireland. Thousands of people rallied in the Bulgarian capital Sofia and several other cities on Monday, protesting against the 2026 budget plan. It's the first drafted in euros before the European Union member country adopts the common currency on the 1st of January.
Tens of thousands of protesters showed their anger in front of the Bulgarian National Assembly in central Sofia on Monday against a draft proposal for the 2026 budget. The Bulgarian government is expected to propose amendments this week. The demonstrators say they're against the plans to hike social security contributions and taxes on dividends to finance higher spending, as well as state corruption. Police used pepper spray to disperse the protesters after clashes broke out.
So there are two main reasons. So one of them is that people are really fed up with the lies. And there were a number of lies that were related to the budget that we discussed today. And the second reason is that people that govern today, they're characterized with a lot of arrogance, with a lot of brutal force that they use to impose their views, including the budgets, but not only the budget.
I think that the people who do not deserve to be called elected representatives, for me personally, have crossed many red lines. First with the budget, second with the decisions they vote on every day in Parliament, and the way they trample on laws, procedures, and consider themselves unpunished.
Authorities say at least 10 people were arrested and that 2 officers were injured. The demonstrations come as Bulgaria prepares to adopt the euro on the 1st of January. The president of the European Central Bank, Christine Lagarde, warned last month that inflation may rise when the country joins the eurozone.
UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has warned that China poses national security threats to Britain. However, he has defended his government's decision to deepen engagement with Beijing. He says that closer business ties are in the national interest. The concerns come after relations between the two countries have strained over accusations of spying by Beijing. Speaking to business leaders in London on Monday, Starmer has said Britain can pursue trade with China while still safeguarding its own security.
A country that poses real national security threats to the United Kingdom. With all that in mind, the absence of engagement is just staggering. A dereliction of duty, because it means that, unlike our allies, we have not been standing up for our interests. Well, no more. It's time for a serious approach, to reject the simplistic binary choice, neither golden age nor ice age, and recognise the plain fact that you can work and trade with a country while still protecting yourself.
Washington defends the actions of a U.S. admiral at the center of deadly operations in the Caribbean. The White House says Frank Bradley was within the law when he ordered multiple strikes on an alleged Venezuelan drug boat. It comes as the U.S. steps up its military pressure in waters near Venezuela and Colombia. Here is more.
The White House says U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth approved a Navy admiral's decision to strike a Venezuelan boat that was believed to be carrying illegal drugs. Hegseth praised the admiral and called him an American hero. White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt said the admiral also ordered a second strike and that he had the legal right to do so.
President Trump and Secretary Hegseth have made it clear that presidentially designated narco-terrorist groups are subject to lethal targeting in accordance with the laws of war. With respect to the strikes in question on September 2nd, Secretary Hegseth authorized Admiral Bradley to conduct these kinetic strikes. Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority and the law, directing the engagement to ensure the boat was destroyed and the threat to the United States of America was eliminated.
Since September, the U.S. military has carried out at least 19 strikes on alleged drug smuggling boats in the Caribbean and Pacific, killing more than 80 people. President Donald Trump met with his national security team on Monday to discuss military options and other ways to increase pressure.
According to reports here in Washington, during a recent call with President Trump, Maduro offered to leave Venezuela, but only under the condition that he and his family receive total amnesty from any prosecution in the future, and for that all sanctions to be immediately removed. President Trump dismissed Maduro's counteroffer, and the possibility for a direct clash has now intensified even more. The Trump administration has said that it does not recognize Maduro as the legitimate president in Venezuela.
It's unclear if he can still make a fresh proposal involving safe passage. Maduro's administration has requested another call with Trump, according to 3 sources. Maduro denies any involvement in the accusations of alleged drug trafficking, and on Monday swore absolute loyalty to the Venezuelan people. During recent weeks, the US has moved an aircraft carrier task force and thousands of troops into the Caribbean, raising concerns it may be preparing for military action. On Saturday, President Trump declared Venezuela's airspace closed to all airlines. Critics from both parties want to examine the legality of the strikes, while the Trump administration says they are acts of self-defense to stop illicit drugs entering the United States.
Devastating floods across Southeast Asia have killed more than 1,000 people and left hundreds missing. Indonesia, Sri Lanka and Thailand are among the hardest hit, with rescue teams racing to reach stranded families.
Rescue and recovery operations are underway across South and Southeast Asia after a week of extreme weather left more than 1,100 people dead and hundreds missing in Sri Lanka, Indonesia and Thailand. In Indonesia, at least 604 people have been killed on Sumatra Island after a rare tropical storm triggered landslides and severe flooding. More than 28,000 homes were damaged and 1.5 million people affected, according to the Disaster Management Agency. President Prabowo Subianto visited the worst-hit areas on Monday, pledging to rebuild roads, homes and critical infrastructure. Over in Sri Lanka, officials say more than 330 people have died and more than 370 are still missing after Cyclone Ditwa swept across all 25 districts, causing the island's worst flooding in a decade. Nearly 200,000 people are sheltering in temporary centres.
We need to rebuild Sri Lanka. We need to escape from this disaster and once again help the people to stand up. It is for this purpose that the President set up the Essential Services Commission.
Authorities say power, water and communications are gradually being restored, though some flood-hit communities report receiving limited aid.
In the night, things were normal. By next morning, everything was underwater, including our house. 7 of us, including children, took refuge on the top floor.
In Thailand, at least 176 people were killed in historic flooding across the south, with the commercial hub Hat Yai among the worst affected. The government is facing criticism over what many see as a slow and disorganised emergency response. International partners, including Canada, say they are monitoring the situation, while local communities across the region have begun raising funds for relief efforts.
The first apostolic journey of Pope Leo XIV comes to an end as the pontiff wraps up his Beirut trip with a prayer gathering on Tuesday, once again highlighting the need for peace and coexistence in the Middle East.
During the Pope's first trip to the country, he visited several holy sites, including the tomb of Saint Charbel, where he prayed for peace in Lebanon and beyond. He also attended an ecumenical and interfaith gathering at Beirut's Martyrs Square, highlighting dialogue and unity among different religions. During his speech there, he expressed hope for peace across the Middle East.
For many years, and especially in recent times, the eyes of the world have been fixed on the Middle East, the cradle of the Abrahamic religions, observing the arduous journey and the unceasing quest for the precious gift of peace. At times, humanity looks at the Middle East with a sense of trepidation and disheartenment in the face of such complex and long-standing conflicts.
Pope Leo met with both Muslim and Christian communities, stressing the importance of peace and coexistence. Describing his visit as a mission of peace, he urged Lebanon's leaders to continue their efforts following last year's devastating conflict between Israel and Iran-backed Hezbollah, as well as ongoing Israeli strikes.
Now we'll take a short break. Right after the break, we'll discuss Pope Leo XIV's landmark visit to Lebanon and his call for peace, reconciliation and the renewed push for a two-state solution. See you shortly.
It's often said the world never sleeps, but who's ready to wake you up with all you need to know about what is happening across the globe and in the region?
We are. Daybreak is live every morning, bringing you a complete wrap-up of the stories from overnight and all the news already happening in the world.
The biggest global headlines, the key regional developments, the must-read stories shaping the day.
We show them, we discuss them, we guide you through their meaning. We give you the news and a first look at the key headlines.
I'm Nadia Jani.
And I'm Lou Brown.
Join us, it's Daybreak here at A News.
On World Business, we meet the boardroom leaders making market-moving decisions. And find out how leaders are dealing with continuous technological disruption.
Inside Politics delves deeply into the heart of global issues shaping our world today. Join me for your go-to source of political analysis from across the region and beyond.
Welcome back to A News. Pope Leo XIV has wrapped up his visit to Lebanon, delivering a strong call for peace. He reaffirmed that a two-state solution is the only path to justice for Israelis and Palestinians, and urged Lebanon's political leaders to embrace reconciliation at a moment of deep economic and political strain for the country. To help us unpack the significance of this visit and his regional implications, we are joined by Ilan Siyalom, geopolitical analyst, joining us live from Paris. Mr. Siyalom, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So how significant is Pope Leo XIV's insistence on a two-state solution at this specific moment in the region?
Well, I think it's extremely significant because the two-state solution has almost vanished from serious diplomatic discussions. So regional actors today operate in a security-first mindset, deterrence, escalation management, and short-term tactical gains. So by reaffirming it now, the Pope is not proposing a technical peace plan. He's restoring a political reason at a moment when none exists. So he's sending a message that even in a context of hardened position, the international community cannot abandon the only framework that has ever carried broad legitimacy. So in doing so, he challenges major global powers to re-engage rather than simply manage an endless crisis.
So what message does the Pope's visit send to Lebanese political leaders, especially given the country's political paralysis?
I think that he's delivering a message of accountability. Lebanon political elite has normalized paralysis. No president, no reforms, and institutions that barely function. So the Pope presence exposed this dysfunction on a global stage. He's saying now that when political authority fails, moral authority has to speak. And for Lebanon's leaders, this creates discomfort because they can no longer hide behind technical excuses or geopolitical justification. The Pope is making their inaction visible, and visibility in Lebanon political culture carries real consequences. It raises the reputational costs of doing nothing.
Mr. Siyalom, what does the Pope hope to achieve by reinforcing support for Lebanon's Christian community?
I think that the Pope is trying to safeguard the Christian presence in a region where it is steadily shrinking. It's important to say this clearly. Christians also live freely and safely in Israel. I mean, pluralism exists there too, and the Vatican recognizes it. But Lebanon is unique because Christians are not only present, they are structurally central to political life. They hold institutional weight that does not exist anywhere else in the Middle East. So supporting them is not about privilege, it's about protecting a model of shared governance, a political ecosystem that embodies coexistence. So if that delicate balance collapses, the Vatican loses both a community and one of the last political spaces where Christian institutions still have agency.
So what do you think? How important is Lebanon for the Vatican's broader Middle East strategy?
I think today Lebanon is essential. For the Vatican, it is a symbolic and a strategic anchor. It is the only country in the region where Christian institutions remain deeply embedded in a political, educational, and cultural fabric. And in a Middle East marked by fragmentation, sectarian polarization, and shrinking minorities, Lebanon represents the idea, fragile but real, of coexistence. So if Lebanon were to slide into irreversible collapse, the Vatican regional presence will be reduced to isolated communities rather than a functioning ecosystem. So defending Lebanon is therefore defending the broader principle that pluralism can survive in the Middle East.
Mr. Sialom, do you think the Pope's warnings reflect fears of a new potential new conflict with Israel?
Yes. His warnings clearly reflect a fear that a localized incident on the northern border between Lebanon and Israel could trigger a much more broader confrontation. The risk of miscalculation between Israel and Hezbollah is extremely high, and Lebanon is in no condition to absorb another conflict. The Pope language suggests an acute awareness that one escalation could reshape the entire regional landscape. So his message is a diplomatic alert. Prevent escalation now, because the next war will not be a repeat of 2006 between Israel and Lebanon. It will be far more devastating, and it could push Lebanon beyond the point of recovery.
Then what impact could this visit have on regional diplomacy, especially given ongoing tensions across the Middle East?
The impact is subtle but meaningful. Middle Eastern diplomacy today is dominated by transactional deals and power politics. And the Pope introduces something absent from current negotiations. I mean, a moral framework emphasizing human dignity, civilian protection, and coexistence. So this does not replace hard diplomacy, but it broadens it. His visit can encourage regional actors, especially in Europe and part of the Arab world, to push for de-escalation and humanitarian considerations. It also signals that international attention to Lebanon has not disappeared, which matters at a time when the country feels abandoned.
In your views, how might the international community interpret the Pope's renewed emphasis on the two-state solution?
I think it will be first understood as a call to re-engage diplomatically. I mean, many international actors, the Europe, UN, and even key Arab states recognize that the current status quo is unsustainable, but lack the political momentum to revive negotiations. So the Pope intervention gives them a degree of political cover to reintroduce the two-state framework into diplomatic agendas. So it says, even in a fragmented environment, abandoning the only international legitimate solution is irresponsible. His message may not produce immediate negotiations, but it reset the expectation that political resolution, not permanent crisis management, should remain the goal.
Mr. Sialom, does the Pope's message resonate with public sentiment in Lebanon today, given the country's economic collapse?
Sure, it does, precisely because Lebanese society is exhausted. The country has experienced one of the economic in modern times, with massive immigration and widespread despair. So in this context, the Pope message resonates not because people believe it and it will fix their material conditions, but because it acknowledges their suffering and their dignity. So it offers moral recognition at a time when citizens feel abandoned by their leaders and forgotten by the world. So this emotional impact matters, even if it doesn't translate immediately into political change.
And finally, does the Pope's intervention carry practical influence, or is its main value moral and symbolic?
Well, I think we need to be clear on that. For sure, its force is moral, but in Lebanon, moral authority has real political implications. The Vatican cannot impose or restructure institutions, but it can shape an environment in which decisions are made. It can strengthen communal resilience, legitimize reformist voices, and regional powers that Lebanon pluralistic is strategically valuable. A country where politics is built on narratives, identity, and external validation, moral influence is not symbolic. It's part of the political equation.
Mr. Sialom, thank you very much for your insights. We appreciate your time and perspective. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
After the break, we'll take a look at the key stories shaping the region. Stay tuned. Welcome back to A News. Now let's take a closer look at the key stories shaping the region. Following a meeting with Tbilisi Mayor Kaja Kaladze in Budapest, Hungarian Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó made a statement, saying that Hungary will not allow the European Union to impose sanctions on Georgian leaders. Szijjártó spoke about Hungary's strong ties with Tbilisi and the Georgian Dream Party, saying that Hungary understood what it meant to swim against the current and not fully align with the liberal mainstream. He also invited Mayor Kaladze to share his experience in managing Tbilisi with the mayor of Budapest and even to deliver lectures, highlighting the close cooperation between the two cities. The Georgian government and the BBC are now locked in a high-stakes confrontation after a BBC investigation alleged the use of a World War I-era chemical agent during last year's protests. Georgian Dream denies the claims and says it will take the broadcaster to international court. Our Nini Nikolashvili has more.
Georgia's ruling party, Georgian Dream, says it will pursue legal action against the BBC, accusing the broadcaster of making baseless allegations about the authorities' response to last year's anti-government protests. The dispute centers on a BBC investigation suggesting that a chemical agent known as Kamit, originally developed during World War I, may have been used against demonstrators. Protesters reported symptoms such as burning eyes, severe coughing and vomiting, with some effects reportedly lasting for weeks. The BBC says its reporting is based on interviews with chemical weapons experts, medical professionals and members of Georgia's special forces. Georgian Dreams rejects the findings, calling the investigation politically motivated and claiming that the BBC ignored detailed information provided by the government before publication. Former Interior Minister Vakhtang Gomulauri confirmed that substances referenced in BBC report had been purchased and used by the Interior Ministry, but only until 2012. He said they have not been acquired or deployed since then, though they were also not formally investigated or destroyed. Opposition groups are calling for an international inquiry, saying an internal investigation would lack credibility. International officials have begun to react as well. A spokesperson for the European Commission said that if the allegations prove credible, they would be unacceptable and urged a prompt, transparent investigation. Nini Nikolashvili, Tbilisi, A News.
A Russian-flagged tanker traveling from Russia to Georgia says it was attacked off Turkey's coast, but its 13 crew members were unharmed. Turkey's maritime authorities said on Tuesday. The Mid-Volga II continued toward Sinop without requesting assistance, with Turkish media suggesting a kamikaze drone may have been involved. Ankara says it has contacted the relevant parties, including Ukrainian authorities. And the incident comes just days after Ukrainian naval drones struck two Russia-bound tankers in the Black Sea. Talks between Afghanistan and Pakistan have once again ended without progress. The latest round, held in Saudi Arabia's capital Riyadh, wrapped up with both sides sticking firmly to their long-held positions. Our correspondent Tamim Bahis has more details from Kabul.
Reports emerging from Pakistani media suggest that recent talks between Afghanistan and Pakistan in Riyadh have ended without any breakthrough. The negotiations held behind closed doors in the Saudi capital reportedly saw both sides remain entrenched in their long-standing positions, with little willingness to compromise. However, it's important to note that neither Pakistan nor Afghanistan has officially confirmed or denied that these talks took place, adding another layer of uncertainty to the diplomatic picture. This comes after earlier efforts mediated by Qatar and Turkey also failed to produce results. Prior discussions in Istanbul ended in a similar deadlock, with Afghanistan attributing the failure to what it described as Pakistan's unreasonable demands. Tensions between the two neighbors have risen sharply in recent months. Pakistan accuses Afghanistan of allowing the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, the TTP, to operate from its territory, an allegation Afghanistan firmly denies, stressing that it does not permit any group to use its soil against another country. Meanwhile, regional players including Russia and Iran have indicated they are prepared to step in as mediators, should both sides agree to broader diplomatic engagement. Tamim Bahis in Kabul, A News.
Tajikistan is in the international spotlight following recent attacks on Chinese citizens along its border with Afghanistan. President Emomali Rahmon has condemned the killings, and Afghanistan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs under the Taliban government has also denounced the attacks. Our correspondent in Central Asia has the details.
Tensions are rising in Tajikistan after 5 Chinese citizens were killed along the border with Afghanistan. These 2 incidents happened within a single week and sent a serious signal to Dushanbe. President Emomali Rahmon has publicly called on security forces to immediately strengthen border control. Heads of security and law enforcement agencies have also been instructed to take effective measures to prevent similar incidents. Tajik authorities say the attacks were illegal and provocative actions from the Afghan side. The first incident took place on the night of November 26 when unknown attackers from Afghanistan struck a gold mining facility in the Shamsuddin Shohin area. 3 Chinese workers were killed and another was seriously injured. And 4 days later, a second attack occurred in the Darvaz district in eastern Tajikistan, killing 2 Chinese road construction workers. Chinese authorities have urged their citizens to leave border areas and take maximum safety measures. Tajikistan and Afghanistan share a long border of over 1,300 kilometers, and most of it runs along rivers, while about 190 kilometers is land. And Tajikistan borders 4 northeastern Afghan provinces. This area has long been considered high risk. Against this backdrop, Dushanbe in Beijing now face a difficult challenge, protecting foreign investment and citizens while avoiding an escalation of tensions in one of Central Asia's most unstable regions. Fariza Kalimurzina, Almaty, A News.
You're up to date with world news for the hour. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to A News for more.